Okay, I have begun our recording. We'll go ahead and get started. I want to say good morning and welcome everyone to our second urban forestry stakeholder meeting of the summer. This is entitled Forestry Opportunities Within Your Community. My name is Alyssa Knox. I am an environment and development planner with the North Central Texas Council of Governments, or NCTCOG for short. This workshop today is hosted in collaboration with NCTCOG, Texas Trees Foundation, and Texas A&M Forest Service, and is funded by the US EPA through the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about what NCTCOG is. We are a voluntary association for local governments. We are one of 24 regional councils within the state of Texas, and we exist to provide regional collaboration on all sorts of issues in our department, specifically environment and development issues. We, as part of our water quality management program, we host workshops quarterly, and we are working to develop processes to support urban forestry efforts within our region. So I'm joined by my colleagues today, Rachel McGregor, who is the lead forester with Texas Trees Foundation, and our presenter today, Courtney Blevins, who I'll introduce in just a moment. And we're scheduled today to last about an hour. So just a few housekeeping items. We are recording today's workshop and we're going to post it on NCTCOG's Environment Development YouTube channel. It was also going to be posted on NCTCOG's Water Resources page. And I'm going to put that link in the chat for you should you need it for any other reason. Sorry, my mouse is acting all sorts of funky right now. Okay, here we are. I'm going to be sending a follow-up email if you have registered for this workshop. If you've RSVP'd, you'll receive the presentation slides as well as a link to the recording when it's available. So if you haven't RSVP'd and you would like those materials, please email me at anox@nctcog.org, and I'm putting that in the chat as well for you to have. And then, as always, please make sure you just keep your microphone on mute to minimize any disruptions until we have time for question and answers, which we will throughout the presentation. So today, Courtney Blevins, who is the regional forester with Texas A&M Forest Service, is going to be sharing about a variety of resources and opportunities to increase urban forestry within your community. And I am going to introduce him, and then he will be taking over sharing capabilities to share all of his resources with us. Okay, so Courtney received his Bachelor of Science degree from Stephen F. Austin in 1983 before joining Texas A&M Forest Service the following year. He's been stationed in both East and West Texas and became the Fort Worth Regional Urban Forester in 2004. He is an ISA board certified master arborist and a certified forester. And Courtney, you can begin your presentation, and I'm going to stop sharing so you can go ahead.
All right, thanks, Alyssa. First off, my apologies. My voice is whacked today, sinuses, so sound much deeper voice than I normally do. The last meeting we had was Rachel McGregor with Texas Trees Foundation was talking about urban forest master plans and management plans, and really that's the goal for both her a nonprofit and my agency. We'd love for every community to have one of those plans in place, but we do realize that there's a lot involved in those plans. And so purpose of my little talk here is just to show some other things my agency can help with or provide if a community is wanting to move more into urban forestry and management, but don't feel they're quite ready yet to do the urban forest master plan. So there's several little programs I'm going to talk about, assuming I can figure out how to share my screen here. But the first is Tree City USA. Some of you probably are already in a community that's Tree City USA. This is, let's see here from beginning. All right, great. This is a national program, and it's really taken off and gotten popular. And it required, we'll go through specifics here in a little bit. It requires a community to do just some basic things to show they are at least in some way managing this thing we call an urban forest. And if they do these things, they apply every year, they receive the designation, then they are officially a Tree City USA. This is run through the National Arbor Day Foundation in cooperation with all the state forestry agencies across the country. So, sorry, again, just basics on trees in general. What's the point? I always liked trees as a kid growing up. I guess that's why I got into forestry. But I didn't think about anything other than, while they really look cool and they're fun to climb. But they really do a lot of things for us. And uh, you know, uh, Arbor Day Foundation is real good about explaining some of these things. There's all kinds of research out there to prove these benefits. It's not just us foresters saying, "Hey, yeah, this tree is good for your health." No, there's research that proves that, and those are some of the educational components that can be worked into Tree City USA. But we do like to think of trees as part of the infrastructure. We know about the gray infrastructure, the streets, the water lines, and things like that. But trees are what's called a green infrastructure, and they provide a heck of a lot of benefits to the people in the communities. And one is health. There's a website you might want to look up called Healthy Trees, Healthy Lives, that explains all these health benefits of trees and then backs them up with links to the research, like it's good for mental health, it's good for heart health, all these different benefits of trees, other than like me as a little kid thinking, wow, they look cool. To create a community legacy, that there are some towns like Fort Worth that has a heritage tree program, and they've got all these trees scattered across the city that have a historical relevance to them or a story to them, and it does connect people to their community and sometimes their past. Positive impact on business and tax base. People actually shop longer and spend more money on shopping areas with trees versus those without. I know that sounds nuts, but that's research too. So they are an investment for the community. There's this thing called biophilia, an innate affiliation to natural settings. Most of us have that. Now, there are some people that kind of clueless to the outdoors, but even people that aren't into trees naturally are drawn to those tree areas. So there is a natural human draw to nature and trees. They can increase employee productivity, believe it or not. ADHD, I've had recent experience with ADHD, and it really helps to get those kids outdoors and on a trail, maybe through trees. Faster hospital recoveries, that's a really neat one. I think this was a doctor, I don't remember his name, at A&M, that did some research on patients recovering from similar surgeries in the hospital. One group, their recovery room windows faced out over a park and trees. The other group, theirs faced out over like parking lots. And what they found, for the most part, is the ones whose rooms faced green areas and trees recovered quicker, requested less pain medication, and the nurses said they were generally nicer to them. So there's all kind of links here. Less crime, that's research too. Overall reduction, stress, and anxiety. So most of y'all probably already know all these benefits of trees, or you wouldn't be here. But there's a lot they provide. Here's the thing with property values: you can get a similar size, condition house. One has large mature trees in the yard, the other doesn't. And generally, the price is going to be the selling price is probably going to be about 10% more for the one with trees. People are drawn to those things. And there's the info on shopping longer and spending more, which we all want. Some other environmental benefits of trees is one of the major money savers for municipalities is stormwater control. The more gray infrastructure we have with streets, parking lots, and things like that, the more stormwater runs off, and that has to be managed. That has to be dealt with by the municipalities. You increase your tree cover, you reduce the amount of stormwater that's running off that has to be treated. We all know about removing pollutants from the air. 26 tons of carbon dioxide, 100 trees takes out a bunch. I like this last fact: 100 trees provide the net cooling effect of 1,000 air conditioners. So now that I beat everyone over the head with the benefits of trees, oh yeah, benefit cost. I'm not a business major, but I do remember having to do things like a benefit cost analysis, and you do those with trees with all the benefits versus the cost, and they do pay off. All right, so the program itself, the Tree City USA program, it provides a lot of things. But one of the main things that the cities are attracted to is public attention. You get a plaque you put up at the entries of your city. You get a flag to fly at City Hall. And what's really popular is you can make your annual presentation of the award to your city council and your mayor, and I'm telling you, they eat that stuff up. It really helps get support for your program at whatever level it is when you go into city council and tell them how great they are for being a Tree City USA and present that flag to the mayor. As I said, it's sponsored by the Arbor Day Foundation, U.S. Forest Service, and the state foresters across the country. It started back in '72, and now they're up to about 3,500 tree cities in the USA. Several million people live around or in a Tree City USA. Here in Texas, right now, we're up to about 100 Tree City USA communities. So if you're not one yet, you're probably located near one that is. And there's a lot of different types of communities, different diversity in there. The oldest one in Texas is right here in the Metroplex, Fort Worth. They're coming up on their 50th anniversary for being a Tree City USA. They were the very first one, and as previously shown, we're up to about 100 now. This slide is a little outdated. These next ones are not 1 year old now, but it can be any size city. Buffalo Gap, south of Abilene, they only got 400 people there. They're Tree City USA and have been for several years. They've been struggling lately to keep that, but and then there's Houston, big old Houston, over 2 million people, also a Tree City USA. So obviously, vastly different resources for communities, this different sizes, but it's still an attainable designation no matter what size your community is. They even have a category, well, it's not a separate category, but like Air Force bases can be Tree City USA. Randolph, I think that's down in San Antonio, is a Tree City USA because these are cities. If you've ever been on an Air Force base, they're cities, and they're also eligible for Tree City USA. So all across the state, different regions, different cultures, physiographic areas, it can be Tree City USA. Even El Paso. I'm sorry, El Paso's got like 3 trees, but they're a Tree City USA. So all the things you can do with Tree City again. It's called a framework for action. What Tree City does a lot of times, besides giving the town recognition, is it kickstarts them with an urban forestry program because the 4 basic criteria, which I'm about to go over here, aren't real hard to achieve, but they do require some effort. And a lot of times these 4 basic things get a city going and okay, well, we've done this. Now what we do next? Well, maybe now we do that urban forest management plan or master plan. So it's really just a really good starting point. Education, that's always involved in this stuff. Educating the public, volunteer groups, the parks crews, city council, whoever, just increases awareness. Public image, I mentioned that. It is a sense of pride for a lot of people, not everyone. I realize we treat people are often in the minority, but there's still a lot of us out there. Financial assistance, that's an interesting one. We'll talk about real briefly, but there it is. There's that framework for action. It gets you started. It's a starting point to go on to bigger and better things, hopefully. And the education component that can come from my agency, which I'll get into in a minute in another slideshow. It can come from within. There's private arborists. There's folks like Rachel with the Texas Trees Foundation. There's all kinds of sources for education to the public or the employees on tree stuff. And that public image, we've talked about that already. It's a popular thing. There's a little sign you get to stick up at the entrance points of your city. Where I am here on vacation, I just noticed yesterday, we're in Gulf Shores, Alabama, and I was driving into town. I had no idea this place was this big, but they're a Tree City USA. I mean, I guess it's all palm trees, but they are one, have been for a long time. And then the citizen pride. One of the things we use a lot in with my agency, maybe not a lot, but with nonprofits too, is we do depend on volunteers a lot to help out with different things. Like I'm a one-man office, so if I'm helping on a tree planting project, obviously I can't go plant all their trees for them. So there's things like the citizen foresters that we train up to do volunteer work. And Tree City USA can push people more in that direction also. The financial assistance, all right, you're not getting any money for being a Tree City USA, but What happens a lot of times is there are different grant programs for urban forestry projects, tree planting, pruning, whatever. Oftentimes, it's not like we've got grants, my agency, um, that are coming up next year. We don't give extra points for being a Tree City USA. However, if we've got two very equal applications and one town's a Tree City USA and one's not, you tend to lean more towards the Tree City USA town just because they've already gotten started. They kind of got a more of a handle maybe on how to handle this project. So it's not direct finance, but it can um, look a little more favorable in your favor. And the publicity, presenting that award, like I said, we try to do it at Arbor Day or a city council meeting. City council meetings are incredibly boring to me, uh, but it's really fun to unfurl that big Tree City USA flag to the mayor and city council, and again tell them great job. They like hearing that. So it works out good. So what are these four standards? What do you have to do to become a Tree City USA? A tree border department. Okay, that does not have to be something complicated. We'll get into in a second. A tree care ordinance. This is one of the things that scares most people off. It is not a tree preservation ordinance, which can be very controversial. And again, get into that in a second. And then you got to spend $2 per capita. That's also something that usually worries people. If you got 100,000 people in your community, then you need to be spending at least $200,000 in community forestry. But that's for everything. It's not just anything related to trees. And then you have to have an Arbor Day observation and proclamation, which that's more of the fun stuff, really easy to do. So the tree border department, it does not have to actually be a whole new board you put together. It can already be the parks board, for example, if your community's got a parks board. They can act as a tree board. It can actually just be a professional arborist or forester that even contracted out. Um, so it's not something that's got to be really big, something newly created. Although most communities do create a new board, just specifically tree board, and they meet. It's no required meeting time either. It's not like you got to meet every month, but at least once a year to discuss what's going on with the program. The tree care ordinance, like I said, that's something that makes people kind of like queasy sometimes because they're a lot of times thinking of a tree preservation ordinance, and tree preservation ordinances are not eligible for the Tree City USA program. What it is, as it says here, a tree care ordinance. So you have to have some ordinance that just basically says, okay, we, the city, realize we have some trees on city property and we are responsible for those trees. What does that mean, responsible for those trees? Well, if you got a 200-year-old live oak that's fallen over in a park, you're responsible for pruning it or something at some point in time. So it's just acknowledging the city has trees and they're responsible for caring for those trees. But again, it is not a preservation ordinance. And then the community forestry program, all kinds of things can are applicable for that $2 per capita. And a lot of communities think, well, gee, we'll never spend that much money on trees. You probably already are. Almost every town is already spending that much money on trees because it can be things like the streets department having to clean up after a storm. Tree debris that counts as in your tree city thing. So in the last bullet point there, anything tree related counts towards that $2 per capita. And then the fun one, the Arbor Day observance and proclamation. Every year, the mayor's got to sign a piece of paper that says, yeah, here's Arbor Day on this certain date. And then you have to have an observance. That observance doesn't have to be complicated either. You can plant a tree at a school. You can plant a tree in a park. You don't even have to plant a tree. Just some kind of ceremony that recognizes, yes, this is Arbor Day. It's what it is. And this is the day our city has chosen Arbor Day, which, by the way, the official National Arbor Day is like the first Friday in April. In Texas, it's the first Friday in November because that's a much better time to plant trees. So hopefully your Arbor Day matches when we think is a great time to do it. So you got all these things done. You go get an application online. You meet those four standards. Then you upload the document. It doesn't cost anything, and it's due December 31st of each year. We review it, make sure everything's okay, and send it on to the Arbor Day Foundation. And within a little time, They hopefully designate you a Tree City USA. Excuse me. All right, so that's the first program. The other thing I wanted to show that's a good resource for communities, or can be, is this thing called iTree. This was developed mostly by the U.S. Forest Service research station. I think Dr. Dave Nowak up in the Northeast Station. But these are things that will give you values of trees, or canopy cover, percent canopy cover, some resource assessment tools that you don't have to hire anybody to do. These are all made to be pretty easy to do in-house. And there's several different ones here. They've got this thing called My Tree, which you could be a homeowner. You got one tree in your yard. You want to know its values. What these things do, besides just counting trees and tell you how many trees you have, is they tell you the value of that tree. So it looks at how much pollution reduction is there due to the trees, how much heat reduction, how much less ozone, what are the values increased on your property due to having a healthy tree. It figures all that stuff up for you, so you can take a tree in your yard, plug in all these numbers, and oh my gosh, my tree is worth several $1,000s. So My Tree, this is the simplest one, and it's for assessing individual trees. And then they've got this thing called iTree Design. It still gives you benefits of individual trees, but more with those, where you're going to put your trees related to buildings, energy savings, things like that. Excuse me again. And then iTree Eco is really a more involved one. That will give you, like, maybe you're doing a whole citywide, not just one tree in a yard, but you're doing a whole citywide assessment, and it'll tell you this is what your city is benefiting from. This is all the dollar benefits these trees are providing your city out here. And you can see there's all kinds of others. iTree Canopy. Maybe you just need to know or want to know, what is our percent canopy cover? A lot of times these urban forest management plans or master plans will set a tree canopy goal, like, I don't know, Rachel, what y'all set Fort Worth at, I think it was 34% or something like that. So you can set a goal. We want this much canopy cover in our city. You can go to iTree Canopy, use that tool, and you can determine what is your canopy cover in the city. And again, you can do all that in-house. And then these other two, I didn't even know these existed: iTree Planting and iTree Species. I don't know what they are, but I'm sure they're great. So iTree is another thing to think about if you're not ready to go with the big urban forest managed plan, things like that. All right, so a couple other things real quick here. Slideshow from beginning. We've got a couple of apps that also are really, really simple to use. Now, again, we, the agency, the Texas Forest Service, would really like every community to have like an inventory, a complete inventory, and a really robust and in-depth one that provides. There's so much information you can find out about your urban forest with a detailed inventory, and Texas Trees Foundation can offer those things. But again, you might not be ready for all that yet. So we do have a couple of apps that we've developed. Oh, why is that going? Don't do that. All right, I'm going to take it out of project mode. We've developed a couple of apps that, just use on your iPhone or your Android. So yeah, the other one. And they are real simple. I mean, they're simple to use. They give you very basic information. So these are not going to give you all the details you're going to get on a really full, big time inventory, but it gives you something, and it's a place to start. So the first one here is called Trees Count, and it's just a basic inventory tool where you'll look at a tree, you'll record some information, move on to the next tree, record more information, and it generates a database for you. The other one that I'll show next is called a tree risk, and it's very similar, except it's concentrating on what is the risk of these trees, because what a lot of people don't know is if you're a municipality, you're going to have municipal lands. You probably got some parks, you got some easements, you got all kind of municipal land that's got trees on it. Trees are living things, and they do die, and they do have parts fail. So you are liable for any tree risk that's on your property. And you can't just say, well, we didn't know that was out there. That does not reduce your liability. You have got to make some kind of effort. Now, what does some kind of effort mean? Almost anything that is within your means to do. But you've got to make some kind of effort to find and make note of any what used to be called hazardous trees, now trees at risk. And if you make that effort, just showing you tried, even if you hadn't pruned that branch out yet that fell on a car, you show you've made that effort, and that dramatically reduces your liability. So the first app here, Trees Count, it's just a simple uh, inventory that your people can do in-house again on their phones. They've done some research that found that, cities spend a lot of money on taking care of their trees, and a lot of times it's storm damage, again, streets department, like I mentioned before. But most of them do not have an inventory. They don't know what they've got out there. They don't know where the risk is. They're just kind of going blind. And those that do, a lot of times will make an inventory, pen and paper. I mean, I'm an older person, as you can see, so I always like the pen and paper stuff. You kind of get stuck with what you started with, but the electronic format, like these apps, is a lot easier to maintain the data, transfer the data, and things like that. So that's one of the reasons we developed this app. So again, it's available for iPhones or Androids, and it's a real simple thing. You could download it right now while we're talking if you want and play with it. But it's a simple way to collect some data. So you'll go in there, you'll open it up. It's got some information you're supposed to read, scope of work, and things like that, and details on how it works. But you will be at a location such as this will come up. You can toggle between satellite view and street view, and you just simply click that plus sign and you start entering tree data in there about that tree. This PowerPoint is a little older. We've got an updated version of this app, so that the screen's going to look a little different. But you enter all that data and then you just click save, and it'll generate a database for you. So what's some of this information that you enter on this thing? You can see it on the left there. What's the land use? I mean, are you in a residential neighborhood? Is one of your parks? Different things. The site where you're planting, the condition. This is real important. I mean, if you got a completely healthy tree that you don't have to worry about. Now, this isn't the risk app. That gets more into it, but you still look at condition on these things, because what you're also doing here, besides just counting trees, is you're recording what maintenance needs there might be. You might see that, wow, that tree's got a limb that's blocking a stop sign. So you record that, and so it's kind of like a work plan. And then there's the maintenance, routine, priority, critical. What do those terms mean? There's a glossary included with this app that tell you. And again, they're very simplistic, and there's a lot of subjectivity to it. But again, it's just a basic thing. So once you enter a tree, it shows up as a dot on your satellite view, and depending on what you said the any problem was, what maintenance needs are needed, the dot will be a different color. And you can see on this right side picture, there's one dot that's red. Well, you said something about that tree that was critical, like it's about to fall over, whatever. The yellows are more routine, like, yeah, somewhere in the next 5 years, maybe prune this up a little bit. So you can filter it by severity of the issues out there. Then when you're all done, you can export this thing. It turns it into an Excel file that you can just email to anyone. Your city manager, if he cares anything at all about this data, you can show him, yeah, look what we've done. We're working out here. But it provides all that information in the spreadsheet that then you can play with however you want to organize what needs to be done or what you're going to try to do first. There's a screenshot of it there. So when you're on the App Store, just Google in Texas Forest Service trees count, and you should come up with that icon you see there. The other thing it's capable of doing also, if you already have data, some tree inventory data out there like ArcGIS info, you can import that into this application, and then it'll populate it with all those trees that you may already have the information on. GIS people know how to do that. not me. And a really cool thing about it is you can create reports from it. And I know these are impossible to see, uh, but trust me, it's pretty neat. You know, you go out there, you record all these trees, you got a neat little map that shows dots of different colors, but you can generate this report that says, oh, here's the most critical trees we have, here's our biggest maintenance issues, and sort of prioritize what, if anything, needs to be done. The other thing you can do is it is compatible with the iTree Eco. I showed you previously the iTree suite. Uh, you can import or combine your information. And of course, they're doing lawn maintenance with leaf blowers as I do this. Um, but you can import it into, or you can import iTree data into this app, so they can work hand in hand. Again, I'm not a computer person. I don't know how to do that. So anyway, you can download that. It's free and it's kind of fun to play with and see what you got. All right. So the next one then I mentioned is trees count. Mhm. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Tree risk. We just did trees count. Mhm. Maybe we'll get to it. Okay, so this one again is more concentrated on risk. Let's see from again. There are levels of risk assessment. This is what's called a level one assessment, which just means it's the most basic kind. You're not using tools, you're not drilling into the tree, you're not getting in a bucket truck, you're not climbing the tree. This is just a real quick look at a tree, a walk around, noting any major problems that you might have on there. And that's what's called a level one assessment. And of course, oh my God, so like I said, there's a lot of risk with trees, and we do love them. They provide a lot of benefits, but they also are risk factors and can fall on things and can hurt people. And you never know. You know, you can't, like I said, you can't plead ignorance to these things and not know they're happening, or potentially going to happen. You've got to make some kind of effort to record the data, analyze the data, or show that you're recording these things and have it in your database. This is what protects you from risk. Some other examples here. Sometimes the trees, they'll fail. You know, it's not like there's a big wind event or anything like that. Sometimes they are just full of decay and they're going to fail at some point. So it's not a perfect science either. I've been doing this for a lot of years, and it's one of the things that makes me more nervous than anything else is going out and looking at a tree and trying to say, okay, this is about to fall or it's not about to fall. So promoting safety of people, you can't plead ignorance again, and you need some kind of systematic process. And so this app is very basic. I mentioned the level one is a limited visual assessment to identify trees with imminent or probable failure. What is imminent? What is probable? Again, there are definitions that you go with on this, and it is subjective. Um, Failure has started or is likely to in the near future. That means you know it's something's about to happen, and you do these things also with a time frame. A lot of times it's 1 year. So what you're saying might or might not happen. You're talking about just you're not saying forever. Like, you know, someday every tree is going to fall. So you got to set your time frame. So if something's about to happen, or it's probable. It can be expected, maybe under normal conditions within your specified time frame. And then, so that's the the risk of failure. For there to be a problem, you have to have a risk of failure. There's got to be something wrong with the tree. But then you also have a target, and the targets determine a lot. The value of the targets have a lot to do with determining the risk rating of these trees. People, obviously, the most important or valuable target. Things like playground equipment, you separate those. You know there's kids on that. Okay, that's one target. The playground equipment itself is another target. So you can have lots of different targets, and obviously they're different values. This thing here, you've got targets, you've got people, you've got there's a light pole, you've got actually the concrete walkway is a target. A big tree could hit that and crack it. These are all targets. But what about your potential for failure here? Do these trees have a problem? They're all young trees that they're not going to fail. If they do, they're not going to do any damage at all. So this is a very low risk situation, even though you do have high value targets. Targets here all over the place: cars, people, buildings, infrastructure, larger trees, and they have limited root space. This is an urban planting, so you've got limited root space. So that's always a stress to the tree. So that's all factored into risk. Beautiful street. But there are targets. And the other thing about the targets that's interesting, there's a new tree risk assessment qualification from the ISA. It's a new thing that started, I don't know, about 8 years ago. The one thing I really like, besides figuring the potential for failure and the value of your target, the other thing that weighs heavily into it is the frequency your target is there. I did one of these at a school in Westlake. It's beautiful but old post oak in the middle of like a courtyard area in the school, and it had some decay at the base of it, which is scary because you got school kids around. Well, you end up figuring how long kids are there. Not all year, not all week, not 24/7. They aren't under this tree the whole time they're there. And so all those things worked into it to where the risk factor wasn't extreme. It was still high, but it wasn't what you think. So the frequency of the targets there plays into this too. Here's an example. This is great. This is, I think, our headquarters down in College Station. One of our folks noticed this post oak, and you can see on the ground next to it, the tree's leaning and the ground's humped up. That's a major danger sign. A tree leaning is not generally any big deal, but if you see land or root plate lifted like that, that tells you it's a recent problem. The roots have separated, and sure enough, not long after that tree went down. So these are the things you're looking for, and you don't have to be a certified arborist. I say certified arborist or professional forester. It helps with credibility if you have someone with those credentials do this stuff. But it's just, again, the deal with risk to limit your liability is you have to make some effort, and it's dependent on whatever abilities your community has. Realizing somebody like Buffalo Gap doesn't have 50 people in the Parks Department to go do this, but that one person actually did went and made an effort with this, and that reduces the liability. So again, on the App Store. Oh yeah, all this stuff. I don't think I need to get into this, but I told you, if you're wondering what imminent means, what probable means, it's all down here in this stuff. It talks about, limitations of the thing, procedures for how to do this, just how to fill out those different forms on there. There's the definitions, crown loss, things like that. We don't have to look at here. Scope of work. Scope of works. And that's something new to me in the last few years, but it's just basically saying, here's exactly what we're planning on doing with this. This lays out the details. And then you continue. Now you can, if you've got an ArcGIS account, you can log into that to do all this data collection, but you don't have to. You just click on this use local data here, and you don't have to have that ArcGIS account. But like the previous app, the trees count, it just pulls up a satellite image of where you are, and you can do street view if you'd rather do that. You push the plus sign and you start entering the information there. And if at any point you don't know what you're doing, there's a help screen down there. Genus, you don't have to get real specific on the species. Just kind of, it's a pecan. You don't have to know what kind of oak, for instance, or things like that. But a little tree ID does help. And there's apps like iNaturalist where you can do tree ID. You record the size. Um, what's wrong with it? Is the whole tree the problem, or is it like a branch on it? And what is the problem? Well, the whole tree is the problem and it's dead. So yeah, that's a problem. It's probably fine, or lean or uprooted. And then real basic, do you take it out now? Do you make it a priority because you did record some problem, or you wouldn't be putting it in your phone? Or do you bump it up to what's called a level 2 assessment? That's where you probably go hire a certified arborist to do a more thorough investigation of the problem, which is common to do. So you can also add pictures. I like this. You can get out there and you can describe all you want and you're sitting there thinking, am I right about this or not? You can upload pictures to help prove your point or your case, so to speak. And again, it puts an icon on there. It's colored depending on the severity of what you said. You said it's something that's critical. The whole tree is about to fall. It's going to show up red on there. And again, you can go street view there if you want. You click on these icons, it'll bring up all that information you had. You can put it in a list view if that's easier for you to look at. But you can prioritize. You can see reds are at the top, then a yellow, then an orange. So if you've got one guy with a chainsaw and it's certified, hopefully, it'd probably start at the top. That's the most serious problem on this thing. And then you can filter it too in all kinds of different ways. Just like trees count, you can export all that, email it. It becomes an Excel file that your manager or bosses can look at and go, wow, it's pretty nice. You did something. Oh, and what was that? Yeah, you can actually import stuff again too, or you can put it into ArcGIS if you've already got those databases. All right, so the last thing, they can't have this much grass outside my door, can they? They're still blowing. The last thing is specific trainings we can offer. Our Texas Forest Service Community Forestry program, we've got folks like me scattered across the state. I've got that green area where Fort Worth is on the east. Mike's over in Dallas. So if you're in my region, you know, you'd call me. If you're in Dallas or Collin County or Ellis County, you'd call Mike. He's going to love me for that. But we're scattered everywhere, and we'll help train people in different things, whatever it is. One of the things we have coming up is community forestry grants. You'll be getting this presentation so you can click on these or take a picture of these QR codes and it'll bring up information. We have them going on right now, and we're going to start taking applications again this fall, and it's for all kinds of different things, you know, tree planting, environmental, you know, cooling and things like that. So you can look at our website for those. The specific trainings we can do, it can be anything. It depends on the forester. You know, I've got a lot. I've got a PowerPoint on something about almost anything to do with trees. So things like biology, you know, basic biology, understanding how trees grow, how they function is kind of important to determining, okay, what's wrong with this tree, what's going to happen with it. Insects, disease, pests. There's a lot of interest in that, so we can come out and go over the basics of that. What you find out when I give this talk is that probably over half the insects and diseases I'm talking about are really not any big deal to a tree. It depends on what it is, lots of things. Pruning is a big one. That's probably one of the things that if I'm going to train a city parks crew on anything to do with trees, most of the time it's pruning. Pruning is not complicated, but it really needs to be done correctly because the way trees deal with wounds, once a wound is on a tree, it never goes away. Trees try to seal off that wound from the rest of the tree. Proper pruning really helps because pruning is a wound. You're wounding the tree. Proper pruning helps that tree seal off that wound as opposed to like a big stub cut or something like that. Different diseases, oak wilt. This is our biggest disease problem in the state. Some areas have a problem with it. West side of Tarrant County, for instance, does. East side does not. So you know, it may be something like that. Tree identification. I love that. That's my favorite thing. So if you ever want a tree identification talk, I'm your man. And then planting and establishment. How do you pick out the tree? What species work for your area? What's the proper way to plant it? Again, it's like pruning. It's not complicated how to plant a tree, but if it's done incorrectly, you can have problems for years to come. So different things. If you want to talk on trees, you want some training for your parks crews, we can help with that. All right. So Alyssa, that is all I've got. Let me stop sharing.
Okay,
Ah,
fabulous.
good.
Thank you so much, Courtney. I appreciate it. We couldn't hear the leaf blowing, at least I couldn't on my end, so you're good there. We have time for questions. You can put the questions in the chat, or if you would like to use the raise your hand function and unmute, and I can call on you. I had a question specifically about Tree City USA to kick us off. I know you had the 4 prerequisites. Are those in order? Like you can't do number 3 unless you do number 1 and 2 first, or can you kind of mix
No.
and match? Okay.
Yeah, you should do whatever. Every community is different, and so it's any order. They just have to be done in the calendar year you're applying.
Okay. Gotcha. Cool. And we also have Rachel McGregor here if you have any questions for her as well. She is a fabulous resource with Texas Trees Foundation.
Fabulous resource, Rachel.
She's wonderful. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions and I don't hear any or see any raised hands, but um, our slides and presentation have everyone's emails and have my email as well. As I said earlier, if you would like the presentation materials and did not RSVP, please email me at knox@nctcog.org and I'd be happy to share those resources with you. They're also going to be on NCTCOG's water resources page. We're going to go ahead and wrap up for today. I would like to thank Courtney Blevins and Rachel McGregor for participating and for sharing their knowledge with us. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney.